We've put more than 1,000 rounds through the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 S15. We did an initial video on that and had some favorable reports on it. But after 1,000 rounds, how did it hold up? And by the way, when I say we, I mean there's several of us who shot the gun. Stick around. Thanks for joining me today while we do a wrap-up on the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 S15. And if you look at the original video, I'll post a link somewhere up here where we explain what the S15 is. Go back and take a look at that. I'm not going to go over all of the details and specs again today. You can certainly get that from the other video. We're just going to look at the 1,000 round wrap-up. Actually, we've got more than 1,000 rounds through this thing, and there's more than a half a dozen of us who have shot the gun. And we'll roll some of that footage in throughout this video and maybe even do a little more detail at the end. We'll also fast forward a lot of it. Most of the shots, in fact, almost all of the 1,000 plus rounds were captured on video, so obviously I'm not going to show all of that. I don't want to bore you with several hours of nothing but shooting. But I do want to talk about some things on this particular Alpha Foxtrot S15. Again, this is an early serial number model. It is number 63. So there's some things on this that will probably be corrected or fine-tuned in the upcoming models of this gun. A couple of the comments I've seen on this are that the magazines are loose. Now these are the Shield Arms S15 mag, same thing that would go in a Glock 48, and you notice there is a little bit of play there. And if I use the Glock 48 polymer mags, there's still a little play. However, take the trusty Glock 48 that these are designed for, and there's some play there with the stock 10 round polymer mag. And there's some play in the Glock 48 with the Shield Arms mag. Does it really make a difference? Well, when you look at the results of the shooting with this, it's probably not going to make any significant difference. But you will notice, though, that when I bring out the Dan Wesson ECO, standard officer size 1911 style pistol with a, let's see, this is a no-name mag. Oh, actually, this is a Kimber mag. But there's hardly any play in that. But again, is it a critical issue? And the answer is simply no. The one thing I don't think I covered real well in the initial video, though, was the difference between the Shield mag and the Wilson mag. Now, again, I did compare this with the Wilson SFX solid frame X design compact pistol, and the Wilson uses actually you can put the extended 15 round mag in, the same thing as the EDC X9. They do hang out a little. I think it normally comes with a 10 round mag, but the 15 round Wilson mag, which is a derivative, I'm not sure if it's a Walther or an FN mag, but anyway, it's a slight modification of that, but it is just a hair wider and it is longer for the same capacity as the S15. So again, this is favorably compared to the Wilson SFX line of guns. This is unloaded, by the way, and it's also very dirty because in more than 1,000 rounds I have not cleaned this gun. I took it out of the box initially and cleaned it, lubed it, and have not touched it since. I haven't even added a drop of lube to it, which is kind of unusual for a 1911 to run more than 1,000 rounds without anything at all. And I will say, kind of a spoiler alert here, not one single malfunction. There are a couple of exceptions that were shooter or ammo issue, mainly shooter issue, that are absolutely nothing to do with gun issue. We'll roll some footage on that and talk about them. But other than that, not a single gun-related malfunction in more than 1,000 rounds. I am truly impressed. All right, I want to get into the inside of here in just a minute. But also, a viewer asked, are there any MIM parts, metal injection molded? I took this thing apart. In fact, we're going to take it apart again right now. This is for the YouTube manual reviewers. This is per the instructions on how to clean it. By the way, a little difficult to get that pin out. It's almost recessed. This is a standard length takedown lever or slide stop lever. But when I pull this apart, You'll see that this is a forged aluminum frame, and it does have a steel insert in here for the rails, and you'll see that, again, very similar to the Wilson, the rails are shortened. They're not full length like you get in a normal 1911. That is one of the things that helps contribute to the reliability, is from what I understand. So the question is, are things like the ejector, the plunger tube, the slide stop lever, safety, hammer, beaver tail, are those MIM or are those machined? So I took the slide stop lever out and I looked for typical indications that it would be a MIM'd part, and I don't see any. Doesn't mean they're not. I don't see any. I didn't find anything on Alpha Foxtrot's website that would speak to it. I know that they do a lot of machining. So my initial reaction is that looking at these parts, they are possibly, in fact probably, machined, not MIM. But again, I can't guarantee that, so please don't take that as gospel. The most likely MIM parts on 1911s anyway are going to be the grip safety beaver tail, which is not a big deal. The trigger shoe, again, not a big deal. Takedown lever or slide stop lever can be more of an issue, particularly if there's a separation of the axle and the actual lever itself. But again, there's no indication on here that that's a MIM part. Plunger tube, if that's MIM, you might have some problems. But again, MIM done right is actually just about as good as forged. But again, it's that's if it's done right. And Alpha Foxtrot's got 30 years experience in machining, so I'm guessing that if they MIM'd any of their parts, they're also done right. Is the hammer MIM'd? Again, is that going to be a critical issue? Not necessarily. The safety is one thing that would be a little concerning, but again, it's more of the axle to the actual thumb safety component itself. If that's MIM, that could be a weak point. If this were an ambi safety where the two halves would have to join together, if it's MIM, that might be a bigger issue. But again, taking a short story and already making it long, I don't have any strict evidence of there being any MIM'd parts in here. So take it for what you will. It just does not appear to be an issue. I'm not going to pull the recoil spring out of here right now. It's not captured. It is two-piece, which contributes some to the soft shooting, but it also is a little bit of a pain to get out and get back in without putting the takedown tool before I take it apart. So I'm not going to pull all that out of there, but there's no real evidence of wear on it. Not even any finish wear. This is a DLC coating on it, diamond like carbon, which is a really, really nice finish. This is the polished DLC. Alpha Foxtrot also makes some of their 1911s with a matte DLC, and again, not any issues with the finish or anything. All right, let me get this thing back together, and we'll continue to. I'll roll some footage while we talk about this. All right, there it is. All right, when I say we, I mean there's a half a dozen of my friends have also shot this. Varying degrees of experience. A couple of them are 1911 folks, several of them aren't. The only issue that we had during all that more than 1,000 rounds was one left-handed shooter had a problem with the magazine dropping, and I couldn't duplicate it when I shot it left hand, but apparently his trigger finger was pushing in on the magazine release, and the magazine came out a couple of times. Again, I couldn't duplicate that. We did have a situation where one of the shooters apparently was riding the slide stop lever with his support hand thumb, and a couple of times the slide failed to stay back. But this is a Generation 1 or first generation Shield S15 mag. Stays back just fine. Let's put a Gen 2 Shield mag in there. Stays back just fine. And just for kicks, let's run a stock Glock polymer mag in here. Stays back just fine after the last round. So again, those were shooter-induced issues. We didn't have any single gun-induced issue. I like the fact that it's got a nice reverse crown flush cut barrel on it. Nice wide cocking serrations that work well for all of us. A couple of nits though that everybody had on this particular gun. Actually, one that everybody had, and one that a couple had, but not everyone. One is the squared off. We talked about that in the original video. The squared off grip frame on an officer size. that is a problem. Rounding that mainspring housing like they do on the Dan Wesson ECO makes a huge difference in how the gun feels. However, never had a problem with it shooting, never had a problem with serious discomfort. And there were days that I put 200 rounds straight through this thing just as fast as I could load all of my magazines. Well, get the Wesson magazine out of there. So, that magazine collection, yeah, and it's not a Sage Dynamics, but a collection of burn down or anything. But anyway, so I'd load all those up, and just as fast as I could shoot them and reload them and shoot them again. Never had a problem with them. And even though in the original video I mentioned that right up here with the wide beaver tail compared to the more the narrower, more contoured beaver tail on the ECO, I did feel a little bit of pressure on my hand right here. But again, even extended shooting, and I shoot with my thumb up here, so I'm feeling pressure right in here when I'm holding it, but it never bothered me when I'm shooting. Now, I'd still wish in the next generation they would taper that in, contour it a little bit more. They'd have to contour the frame and the slide stop, or excuse me, and the beaver tail in here. But round that, the mainspring housing off, contour the width of the beaver tail just a little bit more, give it a melt treatment instead of having it so squared off on the front, and this is going to be one phenomenal gun. Again, more than 1,000 rounds. We shot duty ammunition. I shot 115, 124, 135, 147, and 150 grain ammunition, Federal Syntech, the whole bit, everything except the real light, what is it, Lehigh Defense or whatever that makes the real light bullets. I didn't shoot any of that, but everything else we fed through this. Reloaded ammunition, factory ammunition, different bullet contours, everything it digested without one single hitch. This has been, and again, we haven't cleaned it, I haven't lubed it, haven't done anything, and as I said that earlier, I just keep repeating myself on this, I know, but I just am really impressed with this Alpha Foxtrot S15. Wow. I understand that they may be making the Gen 2 with that rounded mainspring housing and with an optics cut. I'm not a big fan of optics necessary for carry, although I've been carrying a couple of different guns with optics. They will not make it, as I understand it, with an option to not have a rail on it. Again, on a little gun like this, I don't see any sense for rail, but apparently that's what the public demands right now, so that's where they're going to make it. Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 S15 officer size 15 round pistol that is still a hair slimmer. I know it doesn't look it there just because of the contouring here, and they're slightly different shape, but a hair slimmer than a 1911 with slim grips. Just a fraction, kind of 100th of an inch or so, and really the same size as the Glock 48, which is what those Shield Arms S15 mags are designed for. Trigger is better. In fact, I haven't weighed it since we put 1,000 rounds through it. Let me do that real quick. All right, one of the complaints I had in the original video was the heavy trigger on this, but it did lighten up after just the first few hundred rounds. So let's see how it is now after more than 1,000. All right, so an average of 5 pulls. We're at 3 pounds, 8.2 ounces, so just over 3.5 pounds on the trigger. And again, it is a clean, crisp, smooth trigger, just a hair up and down play. And again, it's not quite fitted as good as a Wilson or a Nighthawk, but it's really close. A little bit of play, but not much at all. And clean, crisp break, no over travel, and nice short 1911 reset. Again, the only other complaint that I would have is the fact that the hammer still is a little gritty when we're manually cocking it. Certainly didn't notice it during firing. And again, serial number 63, I'm going to expect that there's going to be a couple of things that still need to be worked out. Other than that, again, wow, I am as impressed as I've ever been with the gun. And I'm just sad I got to send this back to Alpha Foxtrot. Although I really want that next generation. We already talked about that. All right, so I probably went on far longer than I should have, but that's typical of how I do my videos, so I guess it is what it is. But I really do like the gun, and thanks for sticking with me through this video and allowing me to share with you my thoughts on the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 S15 15-round officer-sized pistol.